This is Unfilter, episode 257 for November 1st, 2017.
We're now on George Papadopoulos, the Trump campaign advisor who pled guilty to lying to the FBI about his contacts with Russians during the campaign. His agreement lays out months of contacts with Russia and top campaign officials. Our chief investigative correspondent, Brian Ross, here with the details. Good morning, Brian.
Well, good morning, George. The Russia investigation now has its first turncoat or whistleblower among the president's men and women. And the question this morning is, who might he bring down? 30-year-old George Papadopoulos has emerged from obscurity with the best evidence yet of possible collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russians.
Fresh off, not one, not two, but three indictments. This is Unfilter, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly show about the news that really you shouldn't be watching. Go out, enjoy the weather. It's really nice out there. Well, wait, no, it's not. Anyway, hey, welcome everybody. We have a great show lined up for you. My name is Chase. Running the board this week is our board op, Mr. Chris.
Hey, you
Chris.
don't mind if I sit in on the show, do you?
No, actually, you know what? Go ahead, turn on your mic.
Sure. I mean, I'm the board op.
You are the board. Well,
yeah.
We usually don't let the board op speak.
No, I really appreciate this. Is my first time on the show. I really appreciate it.
Great job, by the way.
So, yeah, boy, you really had me come on in a heck of a week. Yeah, heck of a week. I was just looking over the notes there, and I noticed that we have a larger cyber section than I think we've had in ages.
That's right.
And we're going to start out with a piece of news that triggered the both of us this morning. I started working on the show with a passion because of our first clip we're going to play.
Oh, it's a great clip.
Then, yeah, we're going to get into the Manafort stuff, the Gates stuff, all of that.
Papadopoulos?
Yep, Mr. Papa Bing Bang. We're going to, George, let's just call him George.
Just call him George.
Just call him George. Wolf Blitzer calls him George, what's the ABC anchor's name?
George Stephanopoulos.
Yeah, that's what Blitzer accidentally called him on the air. Yeah, I'll play that in the overtime. It's pretty funny.
All right.
Then we have some more information on the original funders of that Trump Dossier. And then, yeah, last Friday news dump, the JFK files came out. And
very bigly. You know, thanks to President Trump.
Don't even.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. There is actually a couple of really interesting things in there. Not necessarily about JFK, but about other things that will blow your mind. We'll tell you about that.
You mean JFK and Kennedy? That's amazing.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And then also, just a couple of strange little bits that we're going to pick up from the Vegas shooting that we haven't talked about for a little bit, and then we're going to end it on a high note that's got information you need to know.
Do you got
about.
info on bump stocks at all? I mean, anything going on with that?
Well, you know, I'm a big bump stock guy.
I know. So I figure, you know, with Vegas.
Oh, wait, no, I was thinking bumper shoots. Sorry, that's a different thing.
That was Labor Day weekend. You missed that.
All right, so you ready to start with the story that got us both fired up this morning?
ASL.
So NBC's figured it all out. Everybody, you gamers out there, you're busted.
Hey, think, Chris.
Yeah,
think.
That's the title of this. That's the title of this, by the way.
NBC Think.
It's the NBC Think piece, and they want you to know that they figured out that gamers are really the alt-right.
Before white supremacists, neo-Nazis, and white nationalists marched in Charlottesville, Virginia in August, they were organizing behind a computer screen.
So that footage, though, you know, that footage there of that
Charlottesville.
That's all the networks have used this one piece, and it's all from Vice. So Vice this is sourced from Vice. Every time you've seen any white man walking with a tiki torch, that is all from Vice. It's really interesting. So this is a clip that's been getting played a lot. And this piece is going to get this show flagged on YouTube because NBC has laid in a lot of music to this. And so it's going to be really easy for their Python scripts to detect that this is NBC content. So YouTube bots, we consider this fair use, but we continue on.
Virginia in August, they were organizing behind a computer screen. And a lot of that organizing happened through a messaging service called Discord, which was originally created to connect video game players to one another.
All right, so far, I think we should break this down a little bit.
Yeah, we're going to have to.
Because so far, nothing here is untrue. They just so happen to use Discord as their platform of choice.
Dude, we have people right now in Discord.
Yeah,
these alt-righters.
There are people that have used Telegram. They have used Snapchat.
Yeah, terrorists.
Yeah,
come on.
Yeah, like, I mean, Al-Qaeda, and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah, the Al-Qaedas. Yeah, the Qaedas have done it.
So
ISIL has done it too.
ISIL. So all right, so far so good.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
This is just the latest in the long-running shared history.
Whoa! Did you see that? Did you see?
My controller turned into a Nazi head.
Or the KKK. I think that's the KKK.
I don't even know anymore.
That's like, well, it's like some sort of stylized
is
KKK.
that a KKK hashed with a ski mask?
Well, yes, and you see that's exactly what it is. And
actually, Chris, that's a nuclear symbol.
And it's also that.
Yeah.
You see how it's linked to the Discord logo?
So that means if I'm a controller, because I'm a gamer, and I use Discord, I'm also with KKKers. Is that what that means?
That's what their chart here shows.
Okay, got it. All right, got it.
Between the gaming community and the alt-right.
The gamers of the alt-right connecting the dots.
Gaming culture has always been racist. It's always been sexist, but the internet has sort of allowed
Whoa.
Yeah, it's always been sexist. It's always been racist.
Always.
That's since the beginning.
Sort of see what has always been there.
Emma Vossen is a PhD candidate studying how
Candidate, by the way.
sexism seeded in gaming is replicated in the real world. Her study is based on Gamergate, a movement that began with
And this is where they start connecting it. See, Gamergate was about gamers, right? It was about video gamers. It wasn't about social issues. It wasn't about anything. No, it was about gamers, and gamers use Discord. Yeah, so they've tracked it back to Gamergate. And you know what? Gamergate reminds them a lot about...
Chris, be careful, because last time I talked about Gamergate, I was targeted, man.
Yeah, well, NBC's probably under target.
Gamergate, a movement that began with intimidating and harassing female video game journalists under the guise of fairness in video game journalism. The harassment quickly gained traction. It helped catalyze the alt-right movement, which secured power and prominence during the 2016 election cycle.
When you were studying Gamergate and you were really looking at the techniques that they use, it's impossible not to see the same techniques being used by Trump supporters.
All right, hold on for a minute.
What?
That's
No.
not gaming
Same techniques.
stuff.
Same
Those
techniques.
are just awful memes, but they're still, but that doesn't mean gamers.
No. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Doesn't at all. Doesn't even a little bit.
Not even close.
Nope.
Not even an ounce.
I'm not. I can barely. I can't make the logical leap. I can't even make it.
There's none. Zero.
Well, what they literally said is you see similarities.
Secured power and prominence during the 2016 election cycle.
When you were studying Gamergate and you were really looking at the techniques that they use, it's impossible not to see the same techniques being used by Trump supporters.
Yeah, but see, she's throwing the
technique
editor,
she's talking about.
Yeah, they're throwing that in the story while they're trying to connect a dot that's not there.
So the technique that
Connecting
she's
the
talking
dots.
about is the use of memes, I believe. That's what they're
guess,
talking about.
yeah.
But of course, that's sort of that is sort of how it's done now. On
I mean,
the internet.
I'm not denying that. Yeah, I've been on Xbox Live. I've been on some public
sure, yeah.
chats that there is trash talking, that there is no filter on.
Yeah, it's like
sure.
there's a bunch of kids on there saying stupid shit constantly.
But at the same time, I've known people to be called racist things, and they know that they're not racist, and it's like they think it's acceptable language. That kind of stuff.
According to Vossen, the gamers and the alt-right share common ground.
As people who are marginalized are fighting for equality, those who've traditionally had privilege, especially white men, feel that they are being oppressed by these people who are trying to just be treated as equal.
So I present you here, we have a case study of the human pattern matching machine, aka the brain, at its best. This woman has a very narrow focus in sociology. She is seeing a pattern, and it's matching to the pattern that she's expecting to see. It's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. What's really happening here is she almost touches on it here just for a moment. I'll back up just a little bit because she almost gets there, but she just misses the mark.
According to Vossen, the gamers and the alt-right share common ground.
Now, there is actually some truth to that. You could also say the unemployed. You could say small business owners like myself who are getting fucked in the ass by health insurance. You could say there's a lot of people that share common ground, but she doesn't connect the right dots here.
As people who are marginalized are fighting for equality, those who've traditionally had privilege, especially white men, feel that they are being oppressed by.
So you could rephrase this. Here would be maybe my pattern match. The middle class and all minorities and everybody who has been getting screwed over for the last 35 years by the military-industrial complex and by DC's corruption and by the fleecing of the middle class and the outsourcing of jobs, all of these things that have led to a steady decline of the quality of life, that have led to the destruction of the quote-unquote American dream. Everybody is angry in this area. This some might call them like a basket, kind of like some sort of basket of I don't know, just like people that aren't very great, very nice. Like they're really angry, just really deplorable attitudes. Like just like a basket of those people, which would represent the majority that came out and voted for Trump, who was the chaos candidate. And while she gets close to making that realization, her own biases kick in, and instead she frames it as a white power, losing white power oppression response.
These people who are trying to just be treated as equal.
Why do you hate black people? African Americans.
They're dirty, they're stingy, and they're just gross.
Xbox Live and PlayStation Network both allow players to chat live while gaming.
Which is a bunch of toxic shit, always. So this piece was put out by NBC. They want you to think about it. They literally say that, just think about it. And they really go after Discord in this thing. You got to worry.
Discord service played a substantial role in fomenting the riots that led to the death of Heather Heyer. After facing pressure, Discord shut down the servers used to organize in Charlottesville. The company stated,
"So I don't think that's accurate, because it's not like, Discord was refusing to shut down these servers and then facing pressure they shut down." It kind of feels and insinuates that.
Yeah, it does.
I think that Discord, once they were aware of what the servers were, they shut them down.
Yeah,
like any place would do.
Mm-hmm. Like maybe AOL chat rooms back in the day.
Yeah. Or
Facebook or Twitter.
So the way that this is presented by this person, and I don't even know who they are, it's not. It's really painting a really bad picture, because you're just trying to hyper focus in on this one thing, and you're not being very fair about it.
Veritunda says, it's a little bullshit. It's a little BS.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, and there are some pieces that we pulled out that are accurate, that are correct.
Yeah, there is something happening.
But the overall narrative to try to link it back to Gamergate, to kind of regurgitate that terrible time, because there are some good female journalists that were being harassed over this stuff.
Gamergate, looking back at it, was the explosion into the public eye of something that has really evolved into this identity politics that we have now, that is toxic and hostile.
Yeah.
And Twitter and Facebook have been sort of right there all along. And so it figures that eventually the government's attention would turn to them in this Russian investigation. And they sat down in front of a hearing and testified. And there's a few things to pull out of this, actually.
We've heard a lot this year about Russia and its attempt to use social media to influence the 2016 presidential elections. But new revelations today about the role of social media giants like Facebook and Twitter add to the issue. Hari Srinivasan has our report.
In fact, officials with Twitter met behind closed doors today with staff on the House and Senate Intelligence Committees about Russian involvement in the election. The New York Times reported that Russia may have used Twitter even more extensively to influence the election, including using automated message accounts, or bots, to spread false information and promote stories about emails by Democratic operatives.
Now, there's only one thing to do when we have a hot Russian news story breaking. We got to bring in the only.
The Zuck?
No, the Sheriff Woody, right after a poignant Zuck clip to set him up.
A statement, quote, "After the election, I made a comment that I thought the idea that misinformation on Facebook changed the outcome of the election was a crazy idea."
You know why he would make that comment? That's Mark Zuckerberg. I don't know if you guys are familiar. Mark Zuckerberg is the CEO of Facebook, and he's fundamentally familiar with how Facebook works.
Because what's the percentages here, Chris?
We'll get there.
Yeah, I know.
He's fundamentally aware of how the platform works.
That's why he's thinking in the back of his head.
This is crazy. This is not. But then he realized, oh shit, I just got us in some political hot water. Now I gotta behave.
Calling that crazy was dismissive, and I regret it. This is too important an issue to be dismissive. Congressman Adam Schiff is a Democrat from California and the ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee, which intends to have a hearing with tech companies soon. Representative Schiff, anything you can say publicly about your conversation with Twitter today?
So Schiff sits here and he talks for quite a while about the importance of all of this, and he raises his eyebrows from time to time, but he doesn't really move his body much. And he really talks about how this is really the crime of the century.
In terms of the use in Facebook and Twitter, I think we can tell that it's significant, but we don't really have a sense of the full dimension. If you look at what...
Okay, so we can tell it's significant. I can't stand to listen to Woody much longer.
You love that guy.
I really do. So that was before the big test of testimony. We had Google there, Twitter was there, Facebook was there, and they were all just pouring their hearts out, you guys.
Social media executives told a Senate subcommittee today that Russian-linked accounts began trying to interfere with the election in 2015, and they kept at it long after the voting had ended. Here's Nancy Cordes.
Nancy?
We take what happened on Facebook very seriously.
Executives from Facebook, Twitter, and Google told senators today that Russian trolls were more prolific than they initially believed, posting 80,000 pieces of content on Facebook alone between 2015 and this summer.
Yes, sir.
Chris, you know, I know you may or may not know this. How many pieces of content are posted?
I don't actually know.
In a day. In a day.
Oh, man. I mean, there's what? They say they have 1 billion monthly active users?
Yeah, so in a day,
yeah,
half that, maybe 500 million.
I mean, and there's a lot of automated posts when people do like you know, because you would consider like if you like a news article and it posts to your feed.
So CBS here, you know, they're presenting it.
You think they're going to give us some numbers?
Maybe, but I was going to say that CBS here, you know, they're presenting this to the viewer at home, nightly news. They're watching this. You're at your home. You just finished your TV
damn,
dinner.
80,000, dude.
You're like, Harriet, look at this, 80,000 pieces.
2015.
That's a lot.
That's not a lot. And this summer.
So this continued after his election.
It continued until we disabled the accounts.
Most of the posts and ads originated from one office building in St. Petersburg, Russia.
And of course, you know, just like when they had an advanced persistent threat, we have a ominous building shot.
Where an operation innocuously named the Internet Research Agency uploaded 1,100 videos to YouTube.
What?
Yep, 1,100 videos to YouTube.
Wow, 1,100 videos.
Do you have a guess as to how many views on average they got?
200.
You are 100 off. Yep.
100.
Yeah. No, some of them got 300, you know, like
wow.
there's, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And published more than 131,000 divisive messages on Twitter.
Wow, how many
Facebook
tweets go out every day?
Up to 126 million users saw fake Russian posts like this one.
All right, so in the testimony, of course, for some reason, CBS decides not to put it in the clip, but in the testimony, they actually give you a scope, some perspective.
I was going to say, I do. If it's something that's very polarizing, it may be well written, like a meme or anything like that, you know, and people are so passionate, especially about this last election, you know, Hillary's side and Trump's side. People will share and share and share, and it's kind of like a grass fire. You know, it will spread. So sometimes if it's set up a certain way,
that's the great thing about a meme. That's why they actually take them seriously.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree.
So, I mean, I know I poo-poo on that 80,000 number, but if these guys are brilliant marketers over there in Russia, I think we need to hire them.
So here,
spread the word.
So let's put the 80,000 number in perspective. It takes just a minute to get there, but I think it's worth playing a bit more of the testimony.
Were these ads pro-Clinton, anti-Clinton, or could you tell? Or these activities?
So what he's gonna dance, yeah, because he's there. He very much does have an agenda. If you watch this testimony, but a lot of the ads, from what I've been able to find, are about like Black Lives Matters, or they're about fracking. They're not really about Trump or Hillary. There is some about Hillary, I think, but it's not. I mean, it's sort of like indirectly.
Viewed in the aggregate, the activity, again, really appears to address a wide range of hot-button topics and appears directed at fomenting discord and inflaming discourse.
In terms of volume.
That's the new phrase, by the way. Inflaming discourse.
Again,
in terms of volume.
How much volume are we talking about?
About approximately 90% of the volume we saw on the ad side appears to be issues-based. Primarily, a much smaller proportion were directed at particular candidates.
But in terms of the actual Facebook, I think somebody said 1 in 23,000. I don't know. Maybe that was another company.
Correct. So in terms of the total volume of material on the site, it's a
okay. So this now before he says the percentage, I want you to take in the totality of what's happened here. I mean, these people have been drugged here, their testimony. It's been the topic of conversation now for 3 weeks about Russian meddling with the election via Facebook and Twitter. So now we are finally going to get some perspective on the total influence it had on Facebook.
Very small percentage. We estimate that the Internet Research Agency content was approximately 0.004% of the content in newsfeed.
0.004%.
So you're saying that there's a chance.
And do you have a guess as to what the Twitter percentage is? Because I know what it is. It's 0.7% of
almost one whole percent.
And that is of just stuff related to election and politics. That's not even the totality of the Twitter feeds.
Right.
That's just if you to take all the tweets and just whittle it down to the political ones, 0.7% for Twitter.
Wow.
And 0.004% for Facebook. Unequivocal numbers here. I mean, this is
candidates.
But in terms of the actual Facebook, I think somebody said 1 in 23,000. I don't know. Maybe that was another company.
Correct. So in terms of the total volume of material on the site, it's a very small percentage. We estimate that the Internet Research Agency content was approximately 0.004% of the content in newsfeed during the time period in question.
So to sum this up, and I'll come back with the jihadist in round two.
So they spent about $1,700 on Google ads. You know, which that's
nothing.
Yeah,
that's
so
like change.
It's not a lot, but what I think what's really going on here is more of like trying to raise sort of like an alarm about something that could happen. That's the sort of I think charitable interpretation. But I have a different interpretation. I have a conspiracy bacon that...
Ooh, I'm hungry too.
Now, for this conspiracy bacon structure to work, you have to buy into a couple premises. Number one, you have to believe that the big politicians in D.C. are mostly bought and paid for by corporations.
All right, so that's cracked pepper. Got it.
Yeah. Okay. So if you think that, maybe corporate influence is what really rules the day in D.C. and that they're all a bunch of corporatists, then you might accept this premise. And here is the rest of it. Large media corporations, really large media corporations, the ones that are based out of D.C. and New York, they're a little upset. It's an unfair playing field, and Google's been kicking their ass now for a decade. And now Facebook's starting to kick their ass, and here's the problem. Political ads during election season are when these companies make their money. They can run in the red during non-election years, but when the election year comes along, they make so much damn money, it makes up for the last 4 years of being in the red. So it's extremely important to them. But it's extremely obnoxious because they have to play by all these damn rules regarding political ads. It's very complicated, and it reduces their ability to sell. And guess what? Google and Facebook and Twitter don't have to follow those same rules, so they can sell different kinds of political ads that mainstream can't sell, and they're pissed off. So they're leveraging their control over their political puppets to launch a new law, and that new law is called the Honest Ads Act.
Seems like nearly every day brings some new twist involving Russia and Facebook or Twitter or Google. On Capitol Hill today, 3 senators added this twist to the drama. They've introduced a bill they say will help protect the next U.S. election from Russian meddling by requiring tech giants to reveal who is buying political ads on their platforms. Virginia's Mark Warner is one of those 3 senators. He's also the top Democrat on the Senate Intelligence Committee, and he joins us now from the Capitol. Welcome, Senator Warner.
So you could see how they would want, that's unfair. If we have to do that, then they have to do that.
Yeah, but you know what that's going to mean, though? That means we're going to have to really use Google because they're going to use shells and PACs.
Oh, yeah.
And we really won't know who's putting money into what because we'll have to dig into it.
Right.
Now, granted, though, at least we'll know.
I think what they're really getting at is we're worried about really deep pockets, like state pockets, perhaps coming in and just funneling money because they would if they did it through us, they'd have their names would have to be on it.
As long as everybody has to do it. I'm okay with that. As long as
Thank you, Mary Louise.
Thank you. Yeah. No, as long as everybody does it, I'm down for it.
Yeah. All right. So this guy comes on and, what does he know, right? He's just some senator. What do you know?
So you are calling this bill you've introduced today the Honest Ads Act. Tell us briefly what it would do.
Well, over the last 9 or 10 months, I've been saying to the social media companies, you got to come clean with the level of Russian interference. And slowly we're getting this information that there were thousands of paid ads, that there were false accounts. We saw a report yesterday that there was a fake account on Twitter that was representing itself as the Tennessee Republican Party. We're saying in this new era where over half of Americans get their their news from social media. If you advertise politically on social media, you need to disclose what group is advertising, and there ought to be a place where people can go look at the content. The same kind of requirements that already exist if people were to advertise on NPR or on television or in newsprint. Equalizing the playing field. And then one other thing it would do, we're simply asking the companies to make a reasonable attempt so that if that ad is being paid for by a foreign agent, that they will try to reveal that foreign agent, since that's already against the law for a foreign government to interfere in American elections.
And to be clear, would this apply to ads that mention a specific candidate, mention a specific party?
It's basically about bringing it all in line, and he goes on to talk about that later on in the interview, too. It's sort of rather implied now.
The internet. So I think they want to come forward. I think a lot of Republicans will support after that. And I also hope, candidly, that these companies who say they acknowledge that they need to do a better job of sorting through some of this content, of making sure that there's not foreign paid advertising coming into our American political system.
Now, how does Facebook and Google do that on a system like that? They're going to have to either write new code, or they're going to have to hire new staff. But during testimony, they did all pledge to support the Honest Ads Act, whatever that means. So it's a new law is coming for ads on the internet.
I would love it if ads had to tell the truth.
It seems like it should just be one law for all ads. Why is there a law for? It's just that seems more complicated.
Yeah,
just seems weird. I don't understand. You know what's complicated is this whole Manafort situation and Gates and
who?
Manafort. Really, I mean, let me tell you. So background on the Manafort thing here is he has been a wheeler and dealer for the Republican Party since Reagan, and he's often worked for the worst dude in the room because they pay the best, and he's been a lobbyist for literally since Reagan. I mean, it is really something. He's been working in D.C. for a long time. My theory is I think he got into the Trump campaign via Priebus, and we'll talk about that more later. But let's start with the big news that we knew was coming because 2 or 3 weeks ago we covered that Manafort's house had been raided.
And by the way, I got a lot of shit for that.
You did?
No,
I don't remember that.
I remember I said, hey, they wouldn't be raiding the house
that's obvious.
if they didn't have probable cause. And a lot of people were like, oh, yeah, this is just a targeted situation to ruffle.
Really?
Yeah,
well,
I got a lot of shit.
Well, because I thought for sure it meant that there was probably, I thought two things. Either charges were coming or they were going to get evidence to lean on him.
Yeah. I know
one of the two things.
Some in the chat might remember, but yeah, no, I got a little shit for it.
Yeah, I tell you what. Well, here you go.
Here we go.
Charges or indictments, as they were.
Paul Manafort, former Trump campaign chairman, is now a criminal defendant, accused of hiding millions in foreign consulting fees to avoid paying taxes and failing to register as a foreign lobbyist. Robert Mueller's prosecutors say Manafort and his business partner and right-hand man in the campaign, Rick Gates, earned more than $75 million from 2006 to 2015 lobbying for Viktor Yanukovych, the former president of Ukraine, Vladimir Putin's man in that position, but put the money in banks on island nations outside the U.S. to hide it from the government. But
now let's stop there. It seems un-American to me. It seems like you're cheating the tax system when you do that, but it is also not uncommon. I mean, everybody knows that Apple and Microsoft and Google do it, but a lot of rich people, if you make a lot of money outside the U.S., why would you bring it in?
Right.
Because you have to pay an exorbitant amount of taxes on that. And you can, if you make money outside the U.S., you can keep it outside the U.S. and you can spend it outside the U.S. Where shit got shady is when he would use shell corporations to bring the money in on the down low. Now, that's a whole nother issue. But like the way that they're like framing like offshore accounts, it seems like you could really start some shit there because a lot of rich people and a lot of corporations have offshore accounts.
They do that already.
That's pretty standard.
2006 to 2015, lobbying for Viktor Yanukovych, the former president of Ukraine.
Remember that too, Viktor Yanukovych, the former president of Ukraine.
Vladimir Putin's man in that position, but put the money in banks on island nations outside the U.S. to hide it from the government. But the indictment says nothing about Manafort's role in the Trump campaign. His lawyer angrily calls the charges ridiculous.
Well, I think you all saw today that President Donald Trump was correct. There is no evidence that Mr. Manafort or the Trump campaign colluded with the Russian government.
So let's stop. Okay, so why is he saying that? What the hell does he mean, right? And because isn't this obviously prove Russian collusion? What in the indictment is that he colluded with the Ukrainian government and lobbied in the U.S. via two lobby companies. So Manafort himself did not do the lobbying. You understand? He hired lobbying companies, two of them, and he used funding that was provided by the Ukrainian government back like 2014. I will pose you the question while we listen to the rest of this clip. What did the Ukrainian government need to lobby for in 2014? What did the standing past Ukrainian government need to lobby for?
Manafort and Gates pleaded not guilty during a brief court appearance today. The judge set their bail and ordered them to remain in home detention. Prosecutors say Manafort spent some of his millions on 4 homes in Manhattan, Brooklyn, Long Island, as well as in suburban Washington, D.C.
They love to go into the clothes, too, dude. The clothes that he spent money on. That also always strikes me as like the news reporter that's reporting on this probably has a $1,000 suit on. So it's kind of like, okay. Now, okay, so let's go back to that question I just posed to you. What would the past Ukrainian government need to lobby in the U.S. for? Well, some of it might be implied here in his lawyer's sort of stumbly speech.
Reporting, George Stephanopoulos.
And we're coming on the air now with breaking news in the Russia investigation. There you see Paul Manafort's lawyer before the cameras are at the courthouse. He's just pled not guilty. Let's listen.
Government. Mr. Manafort represented pro-European Union campaigns for the Ukrainian,
and then he stops. He was almost going to say something.
Was he going to say Ukrainian government?
I think so, but he stopped himself. Exactly. Yeah. If you're watching the video, you can see his mouth searching for the word. Like he knows, like, shit, I almost said government.
You know how like Data used to do the accessing thing?
Yeah.
That's what he's accessing.
Yeah. It's one of these moments in the show where it is better in video right there. But just trust us, like his mouth basically just sort of fumbles around for a moment silently.
And in that, he was seeking to further democracy and to help the Ukraine come closer to the United States.
Such a good guy.
So what does he mean? What is he trying to say? Well, it's funny, Jace. It's all out there. I have some of it linked in the show notes. You see, my friends, there was a story you may recall from, a little while ago.
Fuck the EU.
Where the United States government and other NATO partners colluded, you might say, actually.
Right.
I just realized how loaded that word is now. Colluded to topple the Ukrainian government during the and then, of course, which resulted in the Crimean succession, which everybody blames Putin for, and little brown men. He was lobbying for the president that got replaced. That's what Manafort was doing. He was lobbying for the guy that got replaced, the guy that was pro-Putin. And he was lobbying to try to keep his job. And this is what Manafort does best. He works for the real sons of bitches, the ones that really pay the good money. And then he goes and he fights the good fight. And there's only one cocksucker that's good enough to do that job for Manafort. Because remember, Manafort didn't do the lobbying himself. No, he hired 2 companies. And you may have heard of one of these companies. May sound a little familiar to you. It's the Podesta Group.
Used a sham group called the European Center for a Modern Ukraine to lobby on behalf of pro-Russian forces in Ukraine. Those forces sought a number of changes to American policy, changes to the Republican platform, for example. Some of the changes are obviously contrary to America's interests and values. Among them, they wanted the U.S. government to support the imprisonment of one of the Ukraine president's political opponents. Shady does not begin to describe this operation.
It's kind of amazing. So while the Podesta Group was taking money from Manafort, in the background, the Hillary Clinton campaign was beginning to build. Remember, this is 2014, 2015. But Clinton was beginning to assemble her campaign, and he probably knew he was going to be involved in Hillary's campaign while his company is actively lobbying for the Ukrainian government that Hillary was involved in throwing while she was the Secretary of the State.
Holy crap.
Even some of Tony Podesta's own employees thought the whole thing was disgusting. Well, today's indictment confirms our reporting on this. It describes the Center for Modern Ukraine as a fake organization, merely, quote, a mouthpiece for the Ukrainian president, Yanukovych. The indictment also confirms that the lobbying groups Manafort hired in Washington, including Tony Podesta's, knew perfectly well that the Center for the Modern Ukraine was fake when they signed on to represent it.
Yeah, you can find it at opensecrets.org. So there's 2 lobbying groups. I'm blanking on the other one, but they are less relevant because they got paid significantly less than the Podesta group did.
According to the feds, Podesta's company was told explicitly they would be lobbying on behalf of the Ukrainian president. In November 2012, the indictment says, Manafort's business partner explicitly requested reports on lobbying activity by both those companies so that he could brief the president of Ukraine, Yanukovych, on what they were doing.
So the president was directly aware of the efforts by the Podesta group. The Podesta group was aware that they were doing it on behalf of the president, but yet they hadn't gone through the quote unquote bother of registering as foreign agents.
It couldn't get dirtier. But despite apparently knowing they were acting as foreign agents of a foreign government, the Podesta group never registered as foreign agents. Failure to do that is against the law. In April 2012, the Podesta group filed documents with Congress relating to its work with the Center for a Modern Ukraine. At the time, they falsely claimed that group was just a foreign NGO. The Podesta group's filing contained a declaration by the Center for Modern Ukraine that, quote, none of the activities of the center are directly or indirectly supervised, directed, controlled, financed, or subsidized in whole or in part by a government of a foreign country or a foreign political party.
So this Center for a Modern Ukraine is this sham company that isn't even really bothered to be even, like, you couldn't even make it legit. Like, you couldn't even put the effort into it. So this sham company is even goes to the trouble of somebody, probably not Manafort himself, but somebody in it goes to the trouble of putting together like this declaration that they can then say makes them an NGO, even though that's also completely falsified.
That declaration, false, was endorsed as true by Kimberly Fritz, now the CEO of the Podesta Group and a former Jeb Bush staffer, all apparently a lie. Moreover, according to today's indictment, the Podesta Group must have known it was a lie when they signed that document. Under the law, the firm should have immediately registered with the government, the U.S. government, under the Foreign Agents Registration Act.
And I think Tony Podesta stood, John Podesta's brother, resigned from the Podesta Group.
He did.
Yeah. But that's all interesting, and we'll see. Maybe that goes somewhere. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe they just get fined. I don't know, for not registering. But there was another indictment that I think is far more interesting.
Potentially more important, we learned today that a Trump campaign volunteer advisor, George Papadopoulos, has admitted that he was in touch with Russians during the campaign, who said they had Kremlin contacts and could offer, quote, dirt on Hillary Clinton, including thousands of emails.
Doesn't this sound exactly like the stuff that Junior got?
Uh-huh.
It reveals that a Trump campaign advisor was communicating with well-connected Russians who are offering him dirt on Hillary Clinton.
Now, it's argued how much of an advisor this guy is.
Including emails as far back as April 2016. That's well before we knew that the Russians had hacked the Democrats.
Prosecutors revealed today that he was arrested 3 months ago at Dulles Airport and has been cooperating with Mueller's investigators ever since.
Oh, really?
Oh, for 3 months he's been cooperating with investigators.
You know what I got to say? I'm impressed that none of that got leaked out.
Yeah, really. Yeah. Well,
I'm
actually,
impressed by that.
Have you noticed the significant reduction in leaks now that Bannon and Priebus are out of the White House?
Uh-huh.
Like now that this new Kelly guy's in and all, like the leaks are still coming from the CIA. There's still stuff that's happening, but a lot less leaks these days. And this didn't make it out of the Justice Department. Maybe Sessions is cleaning house.
He pleaded guilty.
I hate that guy, by the way.
He loves
3 weeks ago, admitting he lied to the FBI by denying that he was involved with the campaign.
Now, here's the beautiful thing about this photo that got him screwed later on, because this photo's out there. Here he is advising the campaign, right?
And he's right there, 4 seats away from the president.
This is one of those moments that shows you how politically unsophisticated Trump's campaign was. This was a publicity stunt they put together because the Clinton campaign was attacking him for not having enough political, not consultant, but advisors on foreign policy. And so they pulled together this stunt, which was probably a Manafort idea at the time, to put everybody in here, get everybody in, we'll take a photo, and this is Trump getting advised. Trump looks like he's asleep in their publicity photo. It looks like a total joke. This guy is a total loser, and he's in this photo because they rushed everybody in here. They put the photo out on Twitter. It's look, Donald Trump getting advised. Haha, Hillary's wrong. And in their ham-fisted, half-assed attempt to shut her up, they totally sunk this guy later on. And it's just amazing because if they had had their shit together, they would have already had an advisory panel just put together. They would have already had the pieces in motion. But because they had no political experience, they were totally caught off guard. They rushed this thing. They ham-fisted the release. And now, a year later, it's torpedoing this guy. I don't know. What are the chances of that?
I know. It's with Mueller's investigators ever since. He pleaded guilty 3 weeks ago, admitting he lied to the FBI by denying that he was involved with the campaign when he communicated with the Russians who wanted to set up a meeting between Trump and Vladimir Putin during...
I have a side question, and I don't know if anybody's really answered this yet, and maybe no one can, and but then again, the news loves to speculate. Why do you think he lied? Do you think he lied because he thought that the president's clout, saying, "Oh, this is nothing. This is not a big deal."
It's funny. I hadn't really thought about why, because there's people lie so much now.
I know. We see it all the time, and then we never see anybody get held accountable for it. And he obviously held to the fire. Do you think?
It would be one thing to lie to the press. It's another thing to lie to the FBI. Like, that's a whole other kind of lie, right? So It's like, that's a seriously intentional lie.
Yeah, but you have a guy like your best friend Sessions, lying in front of the panel about his Russian interactions.
Lying. Yeah, I think that's just, I don't know. I feel like that's a different
That's a different lie? Still under oath. Still a lie.
That's him just being at a party, right? That's not him. That's not him exchanging, having emails with dirt on Hillary.
Why do you think this guy lied? I mean,
maybe because it was Oppo research that he was conducting, and maybe he was not. Well, maybe he was expecting the Trump administration to back him up.
Caught. Maybe he thought he wouldn't.
Well, here's the problem: is the frickin' White House sort of threw him under the bus. They're the ones that released his emails.
Yeah, exactly.
They released his damn emails. Yeah.
Papadopoulos is an example of actually somebody doing the wrong thing while the president's campaign did the right thing. All of his emails.
You like that? You like that? Talk about
he's wrong, but we're right.
Hey, George, here's the bus.
Were voluntarily provided to the special counsel by the campaign, and that is what led to the process and the place that we're in right now, was the campaign fully cooperating and helping with that. What Papadopoulos did was lie, and that's on him, not on the campaign, and we can't speak for that.
And we can't speak for it. Next question?
Yeah.
My understanding is the only interaction he ever had was the one meeting that the advisory council gathered together where he was in a large group of other people in the room. And to my knowledge, that's the only interaction they ever had.
So here is my understanding of George and where he came from. He started in the Ben Carson campaign. And then when Ben Carson's campaign collapsed, I believe Priebus had him moved over to Trump's campaign. He was supposedly a volunteer for both of them. But when pushed on it, she had, Sarah Sanders, had quite the response, as she does sometimes. One of those responses that makes spicy look tame, actually.
Sir, just so we have the terminology straight, when you say George Papadopoulos had no official capacity, what do you mean by that?
I mean, he was a volunteer on the campaign and a volunteer member of an advisory council that met one time.
So his activities were entirely of his invention. No one asked him to do any of these things. Is that what you're telling the American public?
I'm telling you that he was a volunteer member of an advisory council that literally met one time.
Now, what's your gut to that? What's your gut response to that?
My gut response to that is she doesn't want to answer the question.
Well, yeah, but I mean the whole excuse of, he's just an advisory guy. Here's what I would do.
It doesn't float for me.
Yeah,
it doesn't float.
Here's why it doesn't float for me, too. Because if you're going to have somebody go do dirty Oppo research with the Russians, you're not going to send one of your top guys. You're going to go send one of the guys you can easily throw under the bus and say he's a volunteer.
Exactly.
This guy's hired to do this kind of stuff in a way because you can say, well, no, he's just some volunteer. Some volunteer that was in the Carson campaign that was handpicked by Priebus to be in the Trump campaign.
So maybe
just some volunteer.
Maybe we just answered the question from earlier. That's why he lied. He was told to lie.
Yeah, maybe.
Ask is now there are 2 episodes in which people associated with the campaign at a rather high level, at least in one instance, and George Papadopoulos is a member of a foreign policy or military advisory committee, saw dirt on Hillary Clinton from people representing themselves as either linked to or associated with the Russian government. Is that just a coincidence?
So that's a good question, right?
Very
so
good
this
question,
is like, hey, this is our second coincidence here. This is starting to be a little strange. It's like, maybe you start to figure it out.
And by the way, I forget the guy's name. That's Major on the left.
Yeah, Major.
The guy on the right.
The CBS.
That's not Scott Pelley, but another guy. But watch the guy on the right after he said that question.
Okay. I do. So,
it's just comical.
Yeah. Okay.
Themselves as either linked to or associated with the Russian government. Is that just a coincidence?
The only
good question. That's like you woke up there for that one. Do you think there's any credence? And I'm just spitballing here.
Yeah.
I haven't read this, but I'm just kind of wondering. When I looked at that dossier and I looked at some of the accusations or some of the connections in there, it seemed like some of these meetings might have been set up by the very people that were writing by Fusion GPS, because none of them ever worked out. When the people are like all the connections are bogus. Like the meetings never happened. A professor that gets referenced turns out to have no idea what anybody's talking about. Like it always turns out to be like the meetings were bogus. They weren't what they're supposed to be. I don't know. It's almost like it was almost designed to entrap these idiots or something. Maybe not.
That would be brilliant if that'd be the case.
I doubt it. It's just they tried so hard. They tried so hard to get dirt from the Russians. They tried so hard, and each time they go to a meeting, it doesn't happen or it turns out to be about something else, and it's just they blow it each time. Meanwhile, the Clinton campaign's got the funding down to Fusion GPS, and they got this research going. Like actually, this time at that point in time, we'll get to that. It was a different organization, and yet they still couldn't get the information, They got the emails where you can see that they tried, right? So they got their hands caught in the cookie jar, but they didn't get any cookies. Is what the problem is.
Yeah.
And so you have to really kind of appreciate their position here, because while there was no dirty play, they did try. But at the same time, there is other dirty play out there that if handled with the same level of scrutiny, people would probably be pretty upset about.
Interaction I'm aware of that deals with this individual was him reaching out and being repeatedly denied. So that's all I can tell you is
she tries to move on, right? But then she's like, God, this is...
He asked to do things. He was basically pushed back or not responded to in any way. So any actions that he took would have been on his own, and you'd have to ask him about those, because I can't answer.
Okay, somebody else.
That's similar, that same kind of meeting.
But it doesn't stop.
At Trump Tower.
I'm sorry?
What explains the campaign's later involvement with those associated with the Russian government, or said they were, to get dirt on Hillary Clinton later in the campaign?
Are these things they took one meeting, nothing came of it? No, I don't believe so.
So she's like, okay, so
they're not related.
Again, she's like, okay, yeah, we did those things. We did put our hand in the cookie jar, but we didn't get any cookies.
Yeah, there's no collusion because nothing happened.
Yeah.
Move on.
Indicate a pattern of trying to obtain that information from that government.
Of getting information about your opponent. No, the big difference here is...
And this is where she's just sort of breaks loose. She's like, okay, here's what I think the bigger story is.
You have a meeting that took place versus millions of dollars being sent to create fake information to actually influence the election. You compare those two, those are apples and oranges. What the Clinton campaign did, what the DNC did, was actually exchange money. They took a meeting. Those are far different. And one is pretty common practice in any campaign to take a meeting. The other one is actually paying money for false information.
Yeah,
that's a big
common
deal and
practice
a big difference.
to take a meeting. Not common practice to take a meeting with a foreign government.
How do we know that?
We don't.
I don't. I mean, that is what everybody's saying right now.
Right.
I agree. I don't actually know if that's true or not, though.
Right.
Like if Canada, would it be a big deal if Canada or Mexico had emailed the Trump campaign? I bet they probably did.
Because that's NAFTA. Because you could use NAFTA.
You know, I mean, if you look at it in terms of size of countries around the world, I bet China probably sent an email. I bet there was probably some other emails being sent around. I don't know if that is actually true. I do know that I kind of almost wish they had gotten some dirt. So here's, because it just would have made the story so much better.
Yeah,
you know. But here's the background subtext to this is, and I would bet you some of these son of a bitches in the Trump campaign, like Manafort and George Papa Pimple, they probably knew this. There was a heavy hitter, quote unquote, I think he died recently, conservative journalist, and he was in the process of researching the Clinton email leaks, and according to him, there were 5 hacker groups that compromised the Clinton email server, and 2 of them were Russian. And that it gave credence. This is, again, I have all this linked in the show notes. I'm not saying I buy into this. Full disclosure, I'm telling you what some people are suggesting, and I have a link in the show notes.
Right.
And so the people in the political know on the right knew that what this journalist was doing because he's well followed. And so there was credence to the idea that Russians had Hillary's email, and it's something that had been floating around. That Hillary's email server had been hacked. That was something that was floating around a lot during that whole email story. It was a murmur story that was just being passed around a lot, and people were speculating about it constantly. So it was active speculation, and there was some reason to buy into that the Russians may have had the emails. And so you got to figure, everybody suspected there was more than the 33,000 or whatever. Like, everybody suspected there was more. So many got deleted. Everybody knew Hillary's always into some shit. So if you had her whole email archive, there's undoubtedly some nuggets in there. I don't know if Canada came with an email about that. Maybe it was say MI6 had compromised their email server, and then a leaker from MI6 wanted to meet with the Trump campaign. Would that be considered worse?
I don't think it matters in my opinion, it doesn't matter what the country is.
I agree.
I mean, it shouldn't matter. I mean, when you're talking about the biggest election, and I'm not talking about the race between Hillary and Trump. I'm talking about a presidential election, that kind of thing. It shouldn't matter the country.
Yeah.
It matters the process. It matters doing it right.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if any of it, any of the 5 hacker groups. I don't know if any of that's true. It could all be bullshit.
Yeah. I think honestly, now with the first indictment, I mean, we're at the start here. I don't think we're at the end. We're at the start. Now we're at the start. Now we're seeing we're seeing people shake up now.
This Ukrainian stuff. So Manafort is basically getting he's basically getting busted for something he's made his entire career out of. This is what he's done forever, for 40 years. So I don't really know if they're gonna nail him super hard, because there's no he's not doing it on behalf of Putin. He was doing it on the behalf of the Ukrainian president. He may get in some trouble, but I bet you it's going to be pretty kind of pretty tame. That'd be my guess. Maybe they could, or they could use his leverage to get him to talk more. But
I think that's why right now with this whole bail period, this is where you're going to see conversations are going to happen behind the scenes and say well, hey, instead of spending 15 years in a federal place, maybe we'll give you 5 in a nice resort if you give us some information. And I think this is where you're going to start to see more things play out.
What would be particularly interesting to me is if the Mueller investigation also somehow ended up connecting around to the Uranium One investigation, just to get more information just finally settled about that. Something that everybody can agree on, because that would be nice too. But I want to talk about the dossier a little bit before we move on too far. We speculated last week that we would find out very soon about the original financer before the Clinton campaign and the DNC took it on. And what's predominantly been the speculation has been Bush, which always seemed a likely case to me. Bush would probably want to take Trump down. But now the word is that it wasn't the Bush campaign, but it was the conservative outlet Free Beacon.
The Washington Free Beacon, as we mentioned earlier, has acknowledged Fusion GPS, the shadowy Oppo research firm, that was digging up dirt on Republican candidates, including Donald Trump, though it says it had nothing to do with the Russia dossier later produced by the company.
That's interesting. He says candidates. I wonder if Fusion GPS did research on Cruz and Carson, and I wonder what else they have out there.
What about Jeb?
Yeah. What about?
Joining us now is the man who broke that story, Byron York, chief political correspondent of the Washington Examiner and a Fox News contributor.
And a Tim Robbins lookalike.
Yeah, we don't need to listen to Tim Robbins. So Free Beacon there funded it initially. Then when Trump sort of was pulling ahead, Free Beacon stopped, and the DNC took over, I guess, and sort of the Clinton campaign via a law firm. All right. So I didn't really talk about it much last week. In fact, I just kind of tucked it away in the overtime and mentioned, the JFK files are coming out. I didn't expect a lot.
It was nice for the president to release them.
Actually, I kind of am pissed because at the very last second,
he helped some of them.
Yeah, he let the CIA rough him up, and he held some back.
Pissed me off because it's you only had 25 freaking years to decide.
And now they have another 180 days.
Jeez.
Which is really a bummer. But we did get some good deets. I'll play a couple from NBC here, and then I got an ABC report, and then I got a couple links we'll talk about.
The documents offer more proof that the Secret Service was apparently never told Lee Harvey Oswald might be a danger to the president, even though the CIA and FBI had him under surveillance for months as a potential communist threat.
Isn't that amazing?
Wow.
Just
even back then, no one talked to each each other.
Yeah, even back then, the person that ended up doing the crime was already under surveillance, just like the Vegas shooter, just like the New York driver.
No, Chris, you can't make those comparisons.
Just like all of them. Can you actually name a single domestic terrorist event that's happened recently where they weren't already on the FBI's radar?
I'll have to get back to you on that, Chris.
I can't think of a single one.
I can't either, no.
And it turns out that was even a thing back during the Oswald days. That's just, well, it's really something. It's either just incredibly coincidental and shows you that they're always just on the verge of stopping it, just always, but never quite closing the deal.
There, yeah.
Or it shows you that we are so ignorant that even when it's right in front of our face for decades, we still don't see the obvious, us being the American people. I'm not sure which one it is.
For months as a potential communist threat. Oswald was added to the list of threats to the president November 22nd, 1963. Reason, quote, kill JFK.
That's incredible.
Wow.
He was a misfit and a sociopath who defected to the Soviet Union.
That's the new little bit here, is that he talked to the KGB. Isn't that interesting? They managed to make a Russia connection with Oswald. Little retroactive storytelling there. I thought that was pretty impressive. Here's ABC. They actually touched on one of the more interesting aspects. NBC totally dodged this, and ABC opens with it.
Next tonight, inside the JFK files, finally released, and there are still many to come. But in the documents already, new intrigue and new questions tonight. Among them, an unconfirmed tip to a British newspaper minutes before the shooting. And after Lee Harvey Oswald was killed, the memo from the FBI director, J. Edgar Hoover, and his concern, writing that the U.S. must believe Oswald acted alone. ABC's chief national correspondent, Tom Llamas, was at the archives when the files were released.
How about that? How about that as a couple? So There was a British news outlet that got a heads up before Kennedy was shot.
Wow.
Tonight, President Trump getting caught up in his own JFK conspiracy after deciding not to release all the documents tied to the assassination. Senator Chuck Grassley, a Republican, calling it ridiculous, tweeting, CIA wants further cover-up. POTUS stop. The president's decision coming after an appeal from the CIA and the FBI that releasing certain files could put the lives of some of our spies in danger.
Like you said, they had 20 years to plan for this.
Yeah,
and now they're going to get
180 days more.
Among the secret files, an unconfirmed tip that on the same day of the assassination, the Cambridge News, a paper in England, received a mysterious call instructing a reporter to call the American embassy in London for some big news. That alleged call came 25 minutes before Kennedy was shot. 2 days later, assassin Lee Harvey Oswald killed on live television.
There is Lee Oswald. He's been shot.
In an FBI memo, Director J. Edgar Hoover outraged, calling that shooting inexcusable, fearing it will feed conspiracy theories, and saying he wants something issued so that we can convince the public that Oswald is the real assassin.
Now, that's some interesting stuff, but that's about as juicy as it gets for the JFK stuff. What I found even more mind-blowing is the JFK files also reveal that the CIA planned to stage bombings in Miami and that they were then going to blame Castro.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. A memo to a top military general, Maxwell Taylor, in April of 1962 describes planning for Operation Mongoose, a covert program aimed at subverting and overthrowing the Cuban Revolution. One part of the document reads, the terror campaign could be pointed at Cuban refugees seeking haven in the United States. We could sink a boatload of Cubans en route to Florida, real or simulated. We could foster attempts of lives on Cuban refugees in the United States, and we could try exploding a few plastic bombs in carefully chosen spots in Miami. Another portion of the memo describes plans to unleash biological and chemical agents on Cuban farms in a bid to cause crop failures.
Wow.
Bombs in Miami, sinking Cuban boats, all of it so that way we could start a war, which we wanted a war. Which really puts the Cuban Missile Crisis into context. And this isn't... There's Operation Northwood. You can look that up too. There are other attempts. There are other times that the CIA campaigned to bomb in American cities to cause the American people to rally around a war. This is not the first time. Now, that is, I think, interesting in context when you take it in with all of the other times the CIA has tried to do this. And if you know of any other names, some of the other operation names, feel free to put them in the Discord chat. But this next one really is a great one. Apparently, the CIA also entertained the idea that Hitler was still alive and didn't kill himself after World War II. He may have escaped Germany and fled for South America, according to CIA memos. And now, I'm not saying, and they're not saying it happened, but here's essentially the story, and I have it linked in the show notes if you want to read the whole damn thing. But the documents are dated October 3rd, 1955, and they say that an unnamed CIA agent referred to as, it's like a code name, Kaim Logi 3, was contacted by a trusted friend who served under his command in Europe and who was presently residing in Venezuela. And he said that, according to him, he had been talking to Hitler about once a month during a business trip that took him to Colombia, where he said that Hitler was hiding. The former German SS trooper also told the same informant that the friend had posed with the alleged Hitler for a photograph, which he included in the memo, which I'm showing on the video stream right now if you're watching the video version.
Wow.
Crichton said that he is on the left of the image, and the man who claims to be Hitler is on the right. Now, here's the other thing that's crazy about it. It wasn't just good old Adolf down there, but apparently some good old Nazi soldier boys who were living in that area, and they still held Hitler in a high esteem, addressing him as Der Führer and affording him Nazi salutes and stormtrooper adulation still.
Wow.
But the CIA remained skeptical. In a letter dated November 4th, 1955, higher-ups casted doubt on their reports. They said it is felt that enormous efforts would be spent trying to confirm the rumors, which could be expanded on this matter with remote possibility of establishing anything concrete. Therefore, we suggest that this matter be dropped. That appears to be the final document released within JFK files about Hitler potentially hiding in South America. But they do note, those same executives or whatever, high-ups as they put it, the source thought it worthy of sending all the way to the CIA headquarters, which is notable. Even at the time, those guys had to do a lot of separating the wheat from the chaff. But sending it all the way to HQ and putting your name on it and sending a picture was, usually you're pretty serious about it if you're a CIA, if you work with the CIA. He says there's actually a book that talks about Hitler living there too. I can't pronounce it because it's
not Mein Kampf, right?
It's not in English, but it tracks the alleged movements of Hitler throughout South America and more specifically Colombia. And you know what? I'll put a link to this in the show notes too, because why not? And so that's in here too. Wow, this is really wow. Look at that. They even have a map. Holy shit! This whole thing is. I had not read this part of it. This whole site is. I'll link that. It's really interesting. What do you think of that? Did not expect.
I did not expect
a Hitler.
That at all.
Yeah.
Well, and then it makes me wonder, why was that even sealed in the first place?
Well,
why was that included in the document trove?
I don't know. I was going to try to find out why would that be in that batch? Is that essentially? Yeah. I don't know.
That's very.
It was released
weird.
As part of the series of files in the John F. Kennedy stuff.
That's amazing to me. Amazing.
And they've even got the photo there, which is really something. It does look like him. It's old and grainy. Again, it's microfilm, but
amazing.
Yeah. We'll put all links to that stuff in the show notes. And by the way, the reporting for the staged bombings in Miami and sinking a Cuban boat is from Democracy Now!, and I will have a link to that in the show notes as well if you'd like to check that out for yourself, because that's some pretty salacious stuff there that came out that wasn't all about at all about a government conspiracy to murder Kennedy, but it's still pretty remarkable.
Amazing, dude.
Do you want to have a little Las Vegas shooter update? Because there's just a couple of items.
As long as you have stuff about bump stocks, I'm okay about that.
Well, maybe. They might have been on the hard drive. We could have got a lot of information, but it turns out it's missing.
From our LA Bureau tonight, counterterror expert Aaron Cohen with me. And Aaron, good evening to you on the West Coast. What would explain as to why you don't have a hard drive and a laptop inside that room?
Yeah, because it wasn't on his body either. So it's not on. So they come in, he's dead. The laptop's there, but the drive's removed, and it's not on his person. It's not hidden anywhere in the hotel room.
Well, Bill, I can tell you from my experience in the intelligence business that we would destroy a hard drive if we were conducting an operation and we didn't want to have any circuitry fingerprint, any type of email fingerprint, any type of web browsing fingerprint. Essentially what it does is it erases any potential...
This guy doesn't know. But he's trying to say that you guy would destroy his... But why are they saying from an intelligence standpoint? That's the thing that doesn't... Like, why would... somebody would have had to take that drive.
Someone would have had to gone in there and pop it out.
Yeah. Yeah, and then here's the other thing that's weird. Speaking of somebody having to take that drive, you know the security guard that's the big hero? Do you have a guess as to where he's chilling right now?
No clue.
Yeah, it's not in the United States.
Oh, really?
Joining us now is former Secret Service agent Dan Bongino. So, Dan, why would investigators allow Jesus Campos, who, again, was the sole eyewitness that we know of to the shooting from within the building, to leave the country shortly after while the investigation is still going on? I'm baffled by that.
It's very strange, Tucker. I mean, think about it. There's really no guarantee he's ever going to return. He's not under arrest. He's not under any court order to stay in the country.
Wonder if he had a hard drive in his pocket. So yeah. So the security guard has fled the country, and he's in Mexico now. So you got the Vegas shooter's brother arrested for child porn.
So shady.
I've also got links in the show notes about how the Vegas shooter was wiretapped already before the shooting, and now we have that. I don't know what to do with any of that, so I say we got a break for the high note. But you know what we got to do before that, buddy?
We have to head over and check out the sack.
That's pretty good.
It's the mail sack indictment edition. By the way, Chris, I know you may not take a look at these from time to time, but I was able to find a police that's right. Well, I was able to find a policeman actually handling a mailbox. I find all these creative mailbox pictures. Anyway, I asked Club 33, hey, what do you think about the indictments? Also, Spain and Catalonia is going on as well. Terrorist attack in New York, or wild card, you tell me. So Verituna chimed in and said, hey, well, I'm hoping you will cover some of what's been going on in the UK. Man, that stuff's been crazy. I've been reading about it on the Beebs. Definitely starting to bubble up now with the whole lewd MP behavior, member of parliament behavior, and worse in parliament. Might be also nice to hear what Unfilter's take is on the hysteria around Russian ads on YouTube being so pathetically insignificant. It really can't really make a mockery of the whole Russiagate narrative.
Up.
He already talked about
He knows
that.
what's up.
That's right.
See, that's why we put this here, so we didn't spoil our thoughts on it.
That's right.
And also stay tuned to the Overtime, Mr. Veritunda, because there is a little coverage of Brexit. However, I am always soliciting more links and more suggestions on that. So if you have any, kind of put them on my radar by going to our Discord chat room in the Unfilter area. And also, if you think it's particularly good, you could always try to ping producer Matt in there if he's there from time to time.
I want to say big thanks to all of our new Club 33 members. We picked up a couple of new ones. We now have just one spot remaining as of this recording right now of Club 33. But hey, if you can't get in at that level, no worries. We ask that you try to jump in where you can. $5 gets you the investor award that gives you the full experience, gives you the access to the source files, every clip, notes, overtime, RSS feed, BitTorrent sync, and all that.
Damn, buddy.
And if you can't get in that, that's okay. Just spread the word. Tell people about it. Share the video. Retweet the tweets.
That's the word.
Get on the Discord. All that fun stuff.
The bird is the word right there.
The bird is the word.
Patreon.com/unfilter. And stay tuned. We'll thank our new patrons at the top of the overtime segment.
Yeah.
And we'll dedicate the whole damn thing to you right after Auntie reclaims her time.
Reclaiming my time.
Oh, I can't believe
she just did it.
Yeah, so we got a little high note here. Actually, not little. We got a big high note here. We got a big, fat high note. And it starts out, Chase, with one of our favorites, a classic pot bust.
Pot bust tonight in what seems to be the most unlikely place.
Police seized dozens of plants at an abandoned liquor store, but it's the location that's surprising. Fenelon and Nevada, right across the street from the 11th precinct.
Yeah, right across the street from the cops, Chase.
Right in plain sight.
So I bet you can probably guess how the cops figured out it was there.
One of their drug dogs. All right, either they smelt it, or one of their drug dogs alerted into it.
Good guesses.
Police found that grow operation right under their noses. Alan?
Well, Stephen, first of all, tonight, neighbors tell me that they are in shock and awe. They can't believe that marijuana grow operation busted inside this old abandoned liquor store. Probably what's even more alarming tonight, take a look around this corner. This building just feet away from the front door of the 11th precinct.
WXYZ.
Wow, I did not know that that was even happening over there.
Who gives a shit? You know, the thing is, though, is this is a difficult thing because you stop because you're looky-looing and the media walks up to you, roll down your window, they put a camera and a bright light in your face because it's nighttime, and they say, what do you think? Go. And all of a sudden you're on, and you just kind of default into automatic responses.
That's crazy.
For Danita Freeman, news of a drug bust in her neighborhood is a huge surprise.
It makes me paranoid and scared because I have young kids and my nephews.
What is exactly...
Why would you be paranoid and scared?
Yeah.
Over a plant? I'm just curious.
In a way, I would be a little more weirded out by a giant abandoned building filled with homeless people doing drugs. At least if it's a grow-op, it's being cared for.
Right.
In Detroit's 11th precinct recently smelled something unusual.
Got it.
I started smelling it yesterday.
Their noses brought them here, right across the street from the precinct, to the Piper Liquor Store at the corner of East Nevada and Fenelon.
Man, I would say that is really brave. But here's the thing. This is not the first time we have had a story about a drug op right across the street from the police. It's like they know where their clients are. They know where their clientele is, and so they build near their clients.
As they got up on the liquor store, the odor was very strong. They went and got a search warrant, and once they got in, what they found is significant.
More than 40 marijuana plants were inside, ready to be harvested.
Which comes to about 12,742 grams with a street value of $127,420.
The operation going on
Wait.
$130,000, they say.
No, you didn't catch it, did you?
What? No, what?
127,420.
Oh, really? Jeez.
Really?
Did he do that?
Really?
Did he do that?
I think he got trolled by somebody.
142 grams.
No, keep going.
With a street value of $127,420.
Yeah, he did, dude. They totally trolled him.
He just got trolled.
Because how do they know?
Oh, yeah.
Because here's the thing, is when you rip the plants out of the ground like that, guess what? Their street value? But it does look like some really great plants, though.
Yeah.
Does that look... So notice, just as you watch this clip, to me, it looks like they're not loading any of this stuff into police vehicles, but they look like there's like the cops... their own personal trucks.
It's a pickup truck.
There's like several.
The operation going on for some time.
It's like somebody's two personal trucks, a van.
It's going on for a while, probably about 6 to 8 months. The trees they're not plants like you would think like a small tomato plant. We're talking plants that are the size of probably a small evergreen tree.
For Freeman and her family,
there goes it. See, look, there goes.
They're just happy it's out of their neighborhood.
This side of my area, there's a lot of kids, little kids, so I'm happy that it's taken care of now.
Yeah, because those little kids are going to get their hands on those.
You gotta think of the kids, Chase. Think of the kids.
Watch
okay?
the children.
Right across the street. That's
Be careful.
Great. So then you got Canada. And maybe they're doing it right.
What? No, don't say that because
I hate it.
We're hearing about what's going on. Is in Alberta or Ontario where basically the government's doing a mass control, kind of like what Washington State tried to do here. And
Oh yeah. I'm not saying in total. I'm saying they're doing it right in ways that really still put the federal government to shame. Like, because not only have they wrapped their head around the fact that cannabis is a safe thing, but they are, instead of putting their heads in the sand, they're actually trying to put stuff in place to help public education and to kind of get a budget ready to educate people on cannabis.
But first, more than $500 million in total will be dedicated to getting recreational marijuana's market ready for the leap to legalization. Today, the consumer education budget was released.
And we want to ensure that we can provide information to Canadians with respect to the risk associated to cannabis use. Also, we've spoken to provinces and territories, and we've heard from many stakeholders, and we're just very pleased that we're able to move forward and invest $46 million over the next 5 years.
So it's not a ton of money, $46 million over 5 years, but I looked into what some of the stuff they're going to be talking about appears to be. Nothing's formalized yet, and it's pretty good. It's informational. It's not really super strong propaganda or anything like that. It's actually fairly necessarily informational. It's, as they say, fact-based. We'll see if that actually comes to fruition or if they manage to screw it all up. But you know what you and I are missing out on?
What's that?
What appears to be a hell of an event. I have it linked in the show notes. It just wrapped up recently, and they got another one in Vegas in just a couple of weeks.
I am Cassandra Farrington. I am the CEO and co-founder of Marijuana Business Daily, and Marijuana Business Daily produces the MJ BizCon events, which are the oldest and largest trade shows here in the cannabis space for the United States.
So, you know, you got your trade shows, of course. You got all your different shows. You got the PAXs and things like that. This is one for pot. All kinds of crazy gear, grow ops. It's like people in the industry, not necessarily consumers.
Connect with all of the other professionals of the industry to get hands-on access to all of the infrastructure, from grow lights to greenhouse construction to extraction equipment.
Yeah, it's pretty neat because they have a bunch of really cool stuff in there. So if you're a supporter, you should grab that clip because, man, they have, like, here, look at this thing. Here, I'll just get you an image of it because it's so nuts. Look at this monster piece of equipment. I don't even know what you'd call this.
To enable banks to...
It's, well, I mean, it looks like something off the set of Star Trek. It's this large tubular thing.
The tube with the neon that's on
the neon that's on all the sci-fi series ever. Yeah, that looks like that thing.
Yeah.
Only something to do with pot. So that conference is going on like in Las Vegas on the 15th. So if you're going to go, you got to report back. Oh, that's pretty cool.
Oh, sorry.
You just got hailed.
I just got hailing frequencies open.
Now here's a little market research, Chase. So you hear a lot of times about potential side effects with pot. And it turns out there may actually be a little bit of an upside to smoking the cannabis. You're going to get laid more.
Weed isn't just for watching silly movies and enjoying tons of food. To be blunt, research shows marijuana use is connected with more sexual activity. Data from more than 28,000 women and nearly 23,000 men gathered in the National Survey of Family Growth surveys indicated that women who didn't use marijuana daily had sex on average of 6 times a month. Male daily users had a sex average of 6.9 times over the past month, while non-users averaged 5.6 times. Among women, daily users averaged having sex 7.1 times over non-users' average of 6 times.
There you go. So, if you want to have sex one more time a month, smoke some pot. Those are the kind of tips you tune into Unfilter.
Only if you're in legal states to do so.
Now, stick around. We do have the overtime coming up, and boy, is it a whammy. We have a new segment right off the top, shaking it up a little bit. And then we're going to have some more on Manafort, Trump's response to it, Blitzer confusing names, and also a little thing that we teased there during the Club 33. What was it? What did we tease? What do I got to remember to play? You remember what it was?
I don't.
Oh, yeah, the Brexit clip.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we'll play that and a few other things. So that's all coming up in the overtime. But if you're all done, if you got your protein and your veggies and you don't need your carb, well, we understand that you're going to move on. Is that some? I gotta get a new analogy. In the meantime,
yes.
Chase, where can people find some of your stuff online?
People could find my stuff over at geekgamer.tv. We have a Discord. We have a YouTube. You can also follow me personally on Twitter at Nunes, Nunes. Hey, Chris.
Yes, sir.
You've been doing a lot of drone things.
Oh, from time to time, it's known to happen.
And you got some great vlog stuff.
Oh, did you see the fall shots I got in that?
My God, man. My God.
YouTube.com/Chris Fisher. That, I got to say, is a hell of a shot. You got to check that vlog out for that.
By the way, I'm really interested in the Mavic Pro because they have it at Costco right now.
Oh, really?
$9.99.
You can also follow me on the Twitter.
Yep.
That'd be the twitter.com/ChrisLAS.
Yes.
Follow the network at Jupiter Signal for live times, announcements, things like that. Mr. Nunes over there, you can follow him too.
Yep.
He's at Nunes on the Twitter, and he's at GeekGamer TV.
At GeekGamer TV. Yes.
And by the way, we do the show live. We do them on Wednesdays. The time zones will be changing. Daylight saving time is reckoning. So go to jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar to get it converted to your local time automatically, and then join us at jblive.tv and discord.me/jupitercolony for the chat room. We'd really like to have you join us there in that Unfilter channel that we've dedicated just for you. And you can check that after the fact for any links that you've seen during the show. And we'll see you back here
next week.
I know you guessed it. Show's not over yet. It's getting started, really. It's time for the overtime! Oh! Brought to you by our patrons at patreon.com/unfiltered. This segment's dedicated to you guys. That's right. That's right. I want to thank our 6 new patrons this week: Michael, Steven, Homero, Devin, Matthew, and Harvey. Devin, huh? I got a cousin, Devin. One of my my age cousins in my age group, getting married next weekend. His name's Devin. So thank you to our 6 new patrons. If you'd like to help us get to our next milestone, where we take things up to the next level, patreon.com/unfiltered. I got stuff in the works. We just need your support. Patreon.com/unfiltered. All right. Now, we got some stuff in the overtime that's sort of tradition. And this week, we're going to shake up tradition just a little bit. I gave Nancy the week off because I felt like, honestly, I just been railing on her too much. I've really been just nonstop with Nancy. So this week, we're going to put the Oh Nancy segment on hold, and we'll introduce the Oh Hillary segment. That's right. That's right. Welcome to the Oh Hillary segment, everybody. And we'll start off with old Hillary Clinton poking some jabs at Fox News.
Hillary Clinton speaking out tonight about the Russia investigation and how a certain network is covering the story.
Awkward. All the networks, except Fox, are reporting about what's really going on. And
she sits there and shakes her head. That's right. That's right. And this is really Hillary Clinton telling you up front, yeah, all the other networks are working with me. It's just Fox that I can't get to work with me. Them sums of
peddling these stories about me. And, I said the other day, I spoke at the Human Rights Campaign. I said,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right. She shakes her head. Yeah, that's right. I'm a badass. You should have voted for me.
It appears they don't know I'm not president.
Oh, shit, girl.
I get where Hillary Clinton is coming from.
Yeah, she's right, man. Yeah, actually, no, I'm serious. She is, I think she's actually right. I think they actually sometimes think she's president.
Successful. So now that we have no Trump collusion, here's what we do have tonight. This is what the media will ignore. This is what matters. These are the facts. This is where the evidence comes in. What did President Clinton...
I'm sorry, who? I'm sorry.
Or President Clinton wannabe...
Oh, shoot, nice recovery there.
President Clinton wannabe...
Yeah, good one. Good one. Yeah, so sometimes Fox does think she's president, so I think she might actually be right. But here's Hillary at her best, where she's really peddling some bullshit, and everything she says is the opposite. So when she says something is white, it's actually black, and this is that.
A chance.
And you can this could be actually, before I started, we should name this theory. Would it be too cliche to say it's the Hillary distortion field? Yeah, I think it's the Hillary distortion field, where she projects her intentions onto other people.
A chance. We had to give an open mind to the new president. And I meant it. I didn't want everybody who voted for me just immediately going into kind of a defensive crouch.
That's bullshit. There were marches that were organized by your financier and people that were associated with your campaign the weekend after he was elected. There has been nonstop issues that have been raised by people that are associated with your campaign from the moment that he was inaugurated. So that is, you win. That is, so she starts there, and you can already tell it's crap. And then she starts pulling in on herself. She starts pulling in as she lies more. She gets more and more, her body gets more and more rigid.
You voted for me just immediately going into kind of a defensive crouch.
Which is exactly what she wanted.
Let's see. Maybe there will be a pivot, a move away from the horrible rhetoric, the divisive, insulting rhetoric that had fueled his campaign from
like identity politics.
The very first day. Maybe because he'd never run for anything, he kind of was either convinced himself or had been convinced that this was how to consolidate his position in the Republican Party, and that there were enough people that would be attracted by his kind of nativist, populist, nationalist, scapegoat rhetoric that, maybe that's what he felt he had to do to win. So let's give the guy a chance. Well, that did not last long. And it didn't last long because clearly, as Maya Angelou said, when people show you who they are, believe them the first time.
That's interesting. That's a... Oh, I'm just thinking of some of your scandals in the past, Hillary. Going all the way back to good old Nixon. Now, what does sort of stick out to me in her speech there is I too, during his inauguration speech, thought he would try to come a little more to the middle, and he really did. He really did put it all out there, and she's still stung by it. Now, there is perhaps something that's on her mind that's got her in a little bit of a bad mood. It could be that the FBI is going to allow an informant to share his information, his records, with Devin Nunes' investigation of the uranium deal.
What happens next with tax reform? And we begin with Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge in our Washington Bureau as the plot thickens involving Democrats, Russians, and American uranium. Good evening, Catherine.
Thank you, Brett. House Speaker Paul Ryan told reporters today the FBI is finally cooperating and evidence will go to Capitol Hill within days.
Why was the FBI not cooperating? That's what I never understood, is why did this have to go all the way as far as the courts before the FBI would start to cooperate with an investigation?
The FBI got in touch with us yesterday afternoon, and they have informed us that they will comply with our document requests and that they will provide the documents Congress has been asking for by next week.
The Justice Department lifted the FBI informant's gag order, allowing that person to share records and evidence with Congress about the 2010 Uranium One deal that gave a Russian business control over a large swath of the U.S. uranium market. Republican Chuck Grassley leads the powerful Senate Judiciary Committee.
But it's so much more than what we ever would have had information to before. So let's start there and see what that does.
The allegations include bribery and a concerted effort by Moscow to curry favor with then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton through a large speaking fee to her husband and donations to the Family Foundation. On Fox, the Republican chairman of the House Oversight Committee questioned whether a federal investigation was hidden by the Obama White House and kept from a senior government interagency committee that approved the sale.
So I wonder if so they want to get access to that review, but I wonder even if they can really tie up a timeline here that shows that the Clinton Foundation took some money and that Bill did some speeches right around the time the decision was being made. They can probably firm that up, but how are they going to prove that it influenced Hillary? Wasn't she pretty far removed from the final decision? Wasn't she just one cog of many cogs in the government that were moving? Now, I'm sure as the head of the State Department, she had a significant role. I'm probably underplaying it to a degree, but she wasn't singular. It wasn't just Hillary Clinton's choice. It was a initiative that was across the entire federal government. And the State Department was just one piece of that. So it seems like a bunch of wasted time because they're gonna figure out, yeah, guess what? The Clinton Foundation took money. Shocker. You mean there's gambling in this facility? And then they're going to find out that Bill took money to do a speech. Shocker. They're going to find out stuff that we've already had out in reports for ages now. And they won't be able to conclusively pin it to Hillary. At least, unless something develops that I am not aware of yet, which is obviously entirely possible. But if I were to make a Red Book prediction now, based on what we know, I'd say this is going nowhere. There may be a few low levels that get churned up by the justice system, but it's not going to touch the Clintons. I don't think so. And if anything is going to touch the Clintons, it might be some fallout from this dossier, but nothing serious. And you can really see the DNC chair, Tom Perez, the new guy, kind of couching every statement when he's asked about this dossier, at least the DNC's involvement.
You've now had a week to investigate the DNC's relationship with Fusion GPS. And I would like to know, first of all, if you would confirm how much money the DNC paid the law firm to pay Fusion GPS. Second, who authorized it within the DNC? And third, who were the people within the DNC who actually got the information and interacted with Fusion GPS?
Well, as you know, I wasn't working at the DNC at the time of this contract. When you do opposition research on another candidate in a presidential cycle, I would assert, especially in the context of what we know now, that opposition research is not simply something that ought to be done. It would be malpractice not to do it, especially when you have a presidential candidate who blew convention out of the window. He didn't disclose his tax returns. First time that's happened in decades.
That's an interesting justification. You know, this guy, he was just a real wild card, and he wasn't going by normal conventions, so we were compelled to do research.
He has a very shady relationship with Russian authorities, and so absolutely, the research that was done, opposition research, initiated, as I understand it, by a conservative organization, and then when
now this is listen to him struggle. So he didn't name the Free Beacon, but he just said conservative organization for whatever reason, and then he's trying to find a euphemism for the Democrats or the DNC or something that doesn't actually say the DNC or the Democrats, and he just stumbles around and gives up.
When their work was done, it was given to then it was continued by
don't say Hillary, don't say DNC.
The Democrats.
Oh shit! I should have said Sanders. Fuck.
And you know, what we know from the research, sir, is that Donald Trump, the Trump campaign, and the Russians were talking to each other, and their conversations, again, as we know from yesterday, were about serious things, interfering with our democracy. So we have not hidden the fact that we had opposition research that was done. Again, it was done by...
You don't need to hear him repeat himself. There you go. So that's the current line right there. You know, Oppo research happens. These things happen. I mean, you know, it's no bigs. I mean, there's some really stupid shit in there, and we really paid somebody to write some dumb stuff, but that's another story. That's just about our leadership. That's just about our leadership. Let's keep going down this path, though. Let's follow the money in the Russia investigation.
The 31-page indictment alleges Manafort and Gates acted as unregistered agents of the Ukrainian government and political parties. They're accused of funneling $75 million to multiple shell companies in the United States and overseas.
Manafort allegedly laundered more than $18 million to pay for property renovations, landscaping, along with cars and clothing. CBS News legal analyst Ricky Kleeman is here to explain how prosecutors are using the money laundering charges to build their case. Ricky, good morning.
Morning.
I mean, all you have to do is read through this, and boy, it's detailed at every little payment to every landscape.
There you go, professional broadcaster Nora covering up her microphone. Way to go, Nora.
Paper and where it went through the money wire transfers. How do you build a case like that as a prosecutor?
Money laundering is really the movement of money, in essence, from the left hand to the right hand, but going through a series of transactions so that we don't know where it came from. In the United States, for example, if you deposit $10,000 or more, it then gets recorded. You have to fill out a form. So if you go around depositing $9,000 in 10 banks, you are money laundering. What happens in Manafort and Gates is that you're looking at financial institutions and financial criminals. So they wanted to hide, the left hand, that they were being paid by the Ukraine to lobby members of Congress and to get good things for the pro-Russia faction in the Ukraine. So you have to structure or transfer or layer this money by putting it through a series of transactions in multiple financial institutions so it comes out over here.
Yeah, you can follow a model for this in the Clinton cash book.
So what did they do? They set up dummy companies, or what we call shell corporations. And when the money goes into there, and then it gets confused, and then it comes out, and what did they do with it? Well, we know, according to the indictment,
I think this lady's confused exactly about what money laundering is, to be honest with you,
that Manafort winds up with having payments for mortgages, for clothing. That's actually my favorite. $849,000.
They do like to joke about the numbers. Of course, all those rich sons of bitches know how much their outfits cost. All of them are probably sitting there in clothes over $1,000, so it's kind of funny. But Trump's not finding it all too funny, and CBS News is making sure that we hear about it.
President Trump today tried to put distance between himself and the investigation into Russian interference in the election. This despite the indictment of his former campaign chairman and a guilty plea by a former campaign advisor. Major Garrett reports what the president said today is at odds with what he said in the past.
On Twitter, President Trump falsely claimed Paul Manafort's alleged offense took place long before he came to the campaign. But the indictment alleges Manafort lied to federal officials and carried out a money laundering scheme during his tenure as campaign chairman and while advising the transition. Manafort has pleaded not guilty to all charges. The president also said few people knew George Papadopoulos, a Trump campaign foreign policy advisor who has pled guilty to lying to the FBI about efforts to contact Russian interests for the campaign. In March 2016, the president spoke to the Washington Post.
George Papadopoulos, he's an oil and energy consultant, excellent guy.
That same month, Papadopoulos was photographed at a foreign policy meeting with candidate Trump and future Attorney General Jeff Sessions.
Man, what's funny about this, these dumb idiots, this is what's going to get Trump, is he doesn't know how to play the game. These idiots are sitting around the table taking a stupid publicity photo for the campaign to show that they're on top of national security. A rushed thing, right? They do this, and then it sinks this guy. It's incredible. It's in their publicity stunt during the presidential campaign, they created part of this problem for themselves. Because they had to show everybody that Trump was getting advised. Of course, he looks completely distracted. But this Russian meddling not being ignored by the people over there across the pond. They suspect there is some spying afoot.
British lawmakers have revived attempts to find any trace of Russian interference in the outcome of last year's Brexit referendum. With more on this, here's Anastasia Chorkina.
You know, the only thing that makes sense is that Russia caused the Brexit.
Well, the anti-Russia hype continues now here in the UK following the brave but quite futile example of this we've seen in the US of trying to implicate Russia in election results that were seen as unfavorable. Now, we do know that here in London, a committee within the House of Commons had sent a letter to the CEO of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, asking him to provide details on Russian ads linked to not just the Brexit referendum, but also the last UK general election. Now, this is part of an investigation carried out by this committee.
Look into all of it. Russians for days.
An inquiry on fake news trying to determine whether or not foreign actors are getting involved by using online platforms to...
No, you think? You think a worldwide network might be used by people all around the world? Oh my God!
Interfere in elections. Now, the Russian ambassador to the UK, Alexander Yakovenko, said he was surprised to see this kind of reaction from the UK, given that the Brexit referendum was called, of course, by the previous Conservative government. He's asked a question of, it's not clear who the British government is if Russia is able to influence these kinds of things.
The Russians always do have such a funny response. Like, it's almost my favorite thing about this kind of news, because the story itself is like, oh, of course, right? Who didn't see this one coming? But then the twist at the end, that's always my favorite part, that little jab that they do. If nothing else, it's at least a good for a laugh. You know what else is kind of good for a laugh is when good old Wolf Blitzer gets confused. Hey, I make mispronunciations all the times, like constancies. I'm constancies mispronouncing things. So I can't really make too much fun here because I understand. You would think, though, that Wolf Blitzer being, CNN's like main guy and doing this for a long time might be a little bit better at reading the prompter.
And our Jim Sciutto, our chief national security correspondent, CNN Sarah Murray. She's our White House correspondent. Jim, tell us, first of all, more about the case against George Stephanopoulos.
I'm sorry, who? I'm sorry, George Stephanopoulos? That's the anchor who works for ABC. Do you know something that we don't know there, Wolf?
Papadopoulos, I should say. George Papadopoulos.
You should say? You should say that. Is that what you should say?
George Stephanopoulos, Papadopoulos, I should say. George.
I guess Wolf had a few drinks at lunch this week.
Papadopoulos, whose role could be very significant.
We got a drunk wolf on the show, guys. We got a drunk wolf. Watch out. Drunk wolf roaming the show this week. Now, we'll end on another great highlight of the media. I had to laugh. When the media, the quote-unquote, the media, they just throw all kinds of crap at the Trump campaign. Some of it, he obviously steps in himself with his Twitter account or some of the things he says. But sometimes you have to just listen to what they're saying. So this is the end of a press conference. And as as the press conference wraps, listen to what the reporters start shouting. It's really something.
He believed that Russia was behind the email hacks. Thanks so much, guys. Hope you have a happy and safe Halloween. Thanks, guys.
Okay, before we get into the panel, just quickly, my memo to Sarah.
Did you hear it? Does this administration believe slavery is wrong? Does this administration believe slavery is wrong? I got to play a little.
Safe Halloween. Thanks, guys.
Okay.
And then Brooke brings it home
Before
for us,
we get into
guys.
the panel, just quickly, my memo to Sarah Sanders is if she thinks that the press is obsessed with this story, she needs to check her boss's Twitter feed.
Oh, snap.